More and more, we're hearing people move away from that old $1 million benchmark. And instead, they're saying something like, I need $2 million in order to be able to retire. Inflation and all, so it makes sense. And that's a fine goal. And when you scour the internet or when you talk to people, most of the people who are aiming for this $2 million net worth goal are targeting the same thing. An $80,000 income as a lifestyle. That's really the $2 million problem they're trying to solve. Here's where it comes from. It's built on the 4% rule. Take your desired annual income, divide it by 0.04, and that's your target portfolio. $80,000 divided by 0.04 is exactly $2 million. Clean, simple, and completely ignoring almost everything else happening in your financial life. Hey guys, what's up? I'm Erin and welcome back to the channel. Today I want to challenge that assumption. The math is fine, but most of the assumptions sitting underneath it are a lot more rigid than most people realize. Many never even stop to ask, hey, is $2 million even the right goal for me? It just gets repeated so often that it starts to feel like truth, that this is how much you need in order to reach that level of income. But when I hear those statements that a $2 million portfolio is really about trying to target an $80,000 income level, my brain starts to reframe it. What if you could design a retirement that gives you the exact same lifestyle without needing anywhere close to that amount? When someone tells you that you need $2 million, they're usually building in a specific and fairly extreme version of retirement. They're assuming that you never earn any other income from the moment you retire on. They're assuming Social Security doesn't exist, or they're at least not factoring it in. And they're assuming that this is the amount that you want to withdraw from your portfolio forever, with inflation adjustments, but that no matter what happens with the market, you're never willing to adjust your spending. That's not really a retirement plan. That's a worst case scenario. And roughly 95% of Americans receive Social Security. So if you're 50, 55, or 60 years old right now, there is an overwhelming chance that guaranteed income is coming your way. I don't think at these ages you should pretend that it doesn't exist when you go to calculate your number. I think if you do, it could very well lead to you working longer than necessary, saving more than necessary, sacrificing more than you truly need to. So let's ask what assumptions are creating that number and which of them can I actually change? Every rigid assumption has a cost. Wanting a set withdrawal with zero flexibility from your portfolio costs money. Ignoring Social Security costs money. Assuming you will never earn another dollar in your life from anywhere outside of your portfolio, that costs you money. And it also works in the opposite direction. A paid off mortgage reduces the income you need. Working a year or two longer reduces how much you need to save. Being willing to be flexible when the market runs into a rough period puts dramatically less pressure on your portfolio. And in my heart, I don't think for the vast majority of us that the portfolio is the real goal. I think it's a byproduct of a set of assumptions. And if you're willing to change the assumptions, the number changes as well. Let's make this concrete. Picture someone who wants to step away from full-time work at age 58. They've been a strong earner throughout their career, averaging the equivalent of $95,000 a year. Their goal is a comfortable $80,000 a year in retirement income, which makes sense given their earnings history. This isn't someone who's living on $40,000 a year and then suddenly wants to double their lifestyle once they get to retirement. Their income already reflects their current lifestyle, so their retirement income should also reflect that. Based on that earnings history, their Social Security benefit at full retirement age of 67 would land around $39,000 a year. If they delayed until age 70, that number climbs closer to $48,000 a year. These figures are estimates based on the current Social Security formula. Your numbers will be based on your earnings, but this does give us a reasonable starting point. So here's the traditional advice. If you want $80,000 a year as an income from your portfolio, using the 4% rule, you need $2 million. But here's the thing. This person retiring at 58 isn't going to be retiring on their portfolio for the rest of their lives. They do have Social Security waiting for them. So really, we have to focus on how to bridge the gap until Social Security turns on. If this person retires at 58 and claims Social Security at 67, they need to self-fund 9 years of income from the age of 58 through the age of 66. During those 9 years, the entire $80,000 has to come from the portfolio because Social Security has not turned on yet. If we assume that money stays invested and earns a modest 3% real return after inflation during those years, the present value of funding that bridge comes out to roughly $640,000. If you'd rather be more conservative and assume no growth at all during the bridge, it's simply 9 years times $80,000 or $720,000. Either way, we're talking about a bridge fund that's somewhere between $640,000 to $720,000. We're still not looking at $2 million, and now we have to look ahead for Social Security to turn on. Once this person turns 67, Social Security starts providing roughly $39,000 a year. Their desired lifestyle is still $80,000 a year, present value, but now the portfolio only has to make up the difference, which is $41,000 a year, not $80,000. So now we have a shift. The portfolio isn't being asked to carry the full weight of retirement anymore. Now it has a partner. For a withdrawal rate at this stage, research from Bill Bengen, along with later work from researchers like Jonathan Guyton and William Klinger and Wade Pfau, they all suggest that retirees who are willing to flex their withdrawals, to make modest adjustments down when the market performs poorly and make modest adjustments up when the market performs well, they can reasonably expect to start at higher sustainable withdrawal rates. Rather than looking at something like 4%, we could talk about 4.5. or even 5, or even 5.5, depending on the circumstances. Using 5% funding $41,000 a year requires a portfolio of about $820,000. Even at a more conservative 4.75%, you're looking at roughly $863,000. But here's the thing, that $820,000 or $860,000 is how much we need at age 67. If we're stepping away from the workforce at age 58 and giving this money 9 years to grow, we have to factor that in. We would need a smaller bucket. We'd only need to set aside about $530,000 at age 58 for this second phase of retirement. At a more conservative 4.75% withdrawal rate, that number is about $556,000. Add up these two portions, the bridge from age 58 to 67, and then our long-term fund using the present value rate, and all of a sudden the realistic total needed on the day you retire comes in somewhere between roughly $1.17 million and $1.28 million. Compare that to the $2 million figure at the top, and all of a sudden we're looking at a portfolio that's nearly $800,000 less. And we haven't even pulled any other levers. What we've done is broken it apart into 2 different segments and factored in Social Security. And while we're reducing numbers, you're just one click away from reducing the number of times the YouTube algorithm forgets to show you my videos. So if you're enjoying this one, please click subscribe. Of everything we talked about, this might be the single most powerful lever available to most retirees: paying off your mortgage. Let's say your $80,000 retirement budget includes $2,500 as a monthly mortgage payment, principal and interest. That's $30,000 a year. Now imagine you enter into retirement with your mortgage completely paid off. You haven't downsized, you haven't changed your lifestyle, but now the same lifestyle costs $50,000 instead of $80,000. Now think back to our bridge years where you step away from the workforce at age 58 and then have Social Security turn on at age 67. That bridge was originally funding $80,000 a year, which meant we needed $640,000 to $720,000. Well, having a paid off mortgage changes this math. If we're now funding $50,000 a year instead of $80,000 a year, over those same 9 years, that bridge comes down to roughly $400,000 to $450,000. That's another $200,000 to $270,000 just off the bridge, on top of everything the payoff does for the rest of retirement. Now layer in Social Security on top of that. If a $39,000 annual benefit is now covering most of your remaining need, your portfolio might only need to generate around $11,000 a year. That would require roughly $220,000 to $245,000 when Social Security begins. But because that money has 9 years to continue compounding while you're living off the bridge, you'd only need to set aside about $142,000 to $158,000 for that second bucket when you retire at 58. Put the whole picture together, and a paid-off mortgage shrinks all parts of this retirement. It takes our original target of roughly $1.17 million to $1.28 million down to the neighborhood of about $540,000 to $610,000. That's roughly $600,000 to $700,000 less than our revised plan, and nearly $1.5 million less than the traditional $2 million target just from one lever. Now, to be fair, this doesn't mean that everyone should run out to rush and pay off their mortgage during their working years. For some, there really are legitimate reasons to carry the mortgage, especially if you're at the tail end and have a very low interest rate. But once you enter into retirement, having a fully paid off mortgage is a wonderful and powerful lever for lowering the amount of income you need to draw from your portfolio. The mortgage is powerful, but it's one lever among several. Working part-time for a few years, even earning something modest like $20,000 a year, doing work you actually enjoy, can reduce the required nest egg by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Delaying Social Security a year or two increases a guaranteed lifetime income stream that comes with inflation adjustments, and this can take pressure off your portfolio. Being willing to be flexible with your spending, make small adjustments down when the market is down, and you can increase your spending when the market is up. That again reduces the pressure and the burden your portfolio has to carry. Downsizing later in retirement rather than immediately gives you options without forcing any early decisions. And using home equity strategically. Sometimes just knowing that your home equity is sitting there as a backstop just in case you ever need it, that can bring a sense of security. But often home equity is not considered in many retirement plans. And many of these levers don't require sacrifice in the way that many people tend to picture sacrifice. And none of these levers have to be the exact one that you pull in your situation, and you don't have to pull all of them. They're really meant to illustrate a bigger point. Retirement isn't a single target you either hit or miss. Life is built on trade-offs, and you have a lot more in your control than those headlines and those headline targets would lead you to believe. When most people think about retirement assets, they think about stocks, bonds, and cash sitting in an account. But flexibility also deserves a place on this list too, because it behaves in an asset in ways that really matter. Being willing to earn a little income, spend a little less during a difficult year, or delay a big purchase. It's a risk management tool, in the same way that diversification of your portfolio and an emergency fund are risk management tools. Someone with a $1.3 million portfolio and a genuine willingness to adjust their spending based on how the market does can absolutely have more security than somebody who sticks to a rigid rule but a larger portfolio. This is really the heart of designing retirement like an engineer. Instead of chasing a single number, rather than asking how much money you need, ask which levers you can pull, and by roughly how much each one reduces the portfolio required to support your lifestyle. A few years of part-time work could absolutely reduce your needed portfolio by a few $100,000, in the same way that delaying Social Security could also reduce the portfolio need by $100,000 or more. Paying off your mortgage, that too could be worth several hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it can help you create a more secure portfolio. Now, you don't have to do every single one of these. We're talking about them to illustrate that retirement isn't one single thing. There are many different versions of retirement, and you have to choose the one that works for you. I want to clear up a common misunderstanding here, because it matters for everything we've just walked through. People often picture the 4% rule as slowly draining a portfolio down to zero, or at least to a lesser point than what they started with over the course of 30 years. But that is not what the research shows. With the 4% rule, your portfolio stays invested throughout the course of your retirement, and it compounds. If you had $2 million and it earned absolutely nothing, you could withdraw $80,000 a year for 25 years before running out. But you couldn't even stretch it to a full 30 years without cutting back. Yes, the 4% rule is built around a 30-year retirement, but it only works if it stays invested. You get to take those inflation-adjusted draws every single year if it stays invested and compounds. And historically, under US market conditions, people utilizing this strategy have ended retirement with as much or substantially more than what they started with. And that's not to say it's a guarantee going forward, but the 4% rule was really built around the worst case scenario. And in most situations, you end up with what you started with or more. So when we build our buckets and we factor in compounding, we're doing the same thing that is going on with the 4% rule. We're factoring in compounding. We're doing the same thing. And here's the real point behind all of this. We're not chasing a portfolio number for the sake of a number. We're chasing a lifestyle, and the money is just the tool that gets us there. Once you run the actual numbers, the ones specific to your own mortgage, your own Social Security, your own willingness to adjust, you start to see the exact same $80,000 lifestyle is available with a portfolio that's meaningfully smaller than $2 million. That distinction matters because if you work longer and you save longer, it comes with trade-offs. You do more years at a job that maybe you like, maybe you don't, and less time with the people you actually want to spend time with. You ultimately end up working longer and delaying the life that you're planning for. If your goal truly is to keep working and building up your portfolio to the highest possible number, that's a fine goal. You do you if that's what's important to you. Some people really genuinely want the largest portfolio possible, and there is nothing wrong with that. What matters is that you're choosing the goal that actually matters to you. But if your goal is a lifestyle and you're targeting an income of $80,000 a year, well, this path deserves attention too, because it's very likely that you could have the same exact lifestyle with less than a $2 million portfolio. So run this version with your own math. Look at your own Social Security, look at your mortgage, look at the areas you're willing to be flexible, and look at the areas where you're not willing to be flexible. Put pen to paper and figure it out for your situation. So, what do you think of this? Leave it in a comment down below. Do you think this is too aggressive? Do you think it's too conservative? Somewhere in between? I'd love to hear. I post new videos every single week. If you got anything at all out of this one, please give it a like. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, or if you know of someone who might get something out of this type of content, please consider sharing. I'll see you soon. Bye. More. I need $2 million in order to retire. Whew. My friend is writing a very long text. I'm nervous to see what it says.